You're probably making at least 3 of these mistakes right now, and you have no idea the deer that used to visit have already noticed. Deer don't send warnings. They don't give you 3 strikes. They don't post a notice on your fence. One day they're in your yard reliable, regular, the same individuals you've watched for months, and the next day, they're simply gone. Most people assume they migrated or moved on, but in the majority of cases, those deer are still in the area. They're within a half mile. They just removed your yard from their active routing, and you triggered that removal without realizing you were doing anything wrong. Here are the 10 things that drive deer away permanently and how to stop every single one of them starting today. Mistake 1. Letting your dog roam the yard, even briefly, even just once. A dog's scent, specifically its urine and glandular secretions, lingers in outdoor environments for 3 to 5 days under normal conditions and longer after rain soaks it into the soil. Even if your dog never leaves the porch, never barks, and has never actually seen a deer, it still leaves a scent that reads as active predator presence to every deer in nose range. The solution isn't to eliminate your dog, it's to create spatial separation. Designate a clear outdoor zone for your dog that is kept as far as possible from your deer feeding area. Use fencing or consistent behavioral training to keep your dog's movement predictable and contained. Avoid letting your dog urinate near feeders under any circumstances. Mistake 2. Changing your yard layout suddenly or without gradual transition. Deer memorize your yard in significant detail: feeder location, approach path, cover positions, exit routes. When something changes, they must reassess from the beginning. A new vehicle parked outside overnight, a moved bench, a child's bike left near the feeder, a garden hose coiled in a new spot. Each of these triggers a threat pause. The solution is to introduce any yard changes gradually, and when possible, avoid placing new objects near established feeding or approach areas during the first few weeks of introduction. Mistake 3. Using chemical pesticides, herbicides, or synthetic fertilizers near deer feeding areas. These chemicals create foreign scent signatures the deer find deeply unsettling, not because they've identified the chemical specifically, but because it doesn't match the baseline scent environment they've stored. The yard smells wrong, and when a yard smells wrong, deer do not enter until it smells right again. Switch to organic, unscented alternatives near any area where deer feed, and give the scent environment a full rain cycle to clear before expecting normal deer activity to resume. Mistake 4. Letting your feeder run empty and not restocking promptly. Deer are efficient. They build feeding expectations around reliable sources and deprioritize unreliable ones quickly. The threshold is 2 empty checks. If a deer visits and finds the feeder empty, it will return within 48 hours to check again. If the feeder is empty on that second check, it begins the process of routing around your location. Maintain your feeder above 25% capacity consistently, and never let it go completely empty for more than 24 hours during active feeding seasons. Mistake 5. Allowing children to run toward, chase, or make fast approaches to deer. Children move fast, unpredictably, and often with high-pitched vocalizations, a behavioral package that maps almost precisely onto predator approach behavior in a deer's threat detection system. Even one incident of a child running toward a deer can register as a predator event in that animal's memory and cause it to avoid the yard for weeks or longer. Teach children early that deer require slow movement, low voices, and patient stillness. The relationship they can build with wild deer using that approach is far more rewarding than any 5-second chase. Mistake 6. Installing motion sensor lights or high-intensity security lighting near feeding areas. A sudden burst of intense light at 2 a.m. is functionally indistinguishable from a spotlight, a predator tool deer have strong learned associations with. Motion sensor lights that activate when a deer approaches the feeder can cause the deer to permanently associate that feeding location with a threat response. If you need yard lighting, use low-intensity amber or warm spectrum lights set to a fixed schedule rather than motion-triggered. Consistent, dim, predictable light is acceptable. Sudden, bright, reactive light is a deer deterrent. Mistake 7. Making sustained direct eye contact with deer repeatedly. We've covered this in detail in previous videos, but it bears repeating here because it's so commonly overlooked. Predators fix their gaze on prey. Sustained forward-facing eye contact is a universal threat signal in prey animal biology. If you observe deer regularly, practice looking near them at the ground around them, at the feeder above them, at the tree line behind them, rather than directly at them. Over time, a deer that has been treated respectfully in this way will begin to seek out brief, relaxed eye contact as a confirmation signal, which is a very different thing from a hard threat stare. Mistake 8. Playing loud music or creating regular disruptive noise events in your yard. Deer build an acoustic baseline, a mental model of what your yard sounds like when everything is safe. Live music, power tools, construction, even persistent television audio through open windows at high volume. All of these disrupt the baseline and require deer to reevaluate the space from scratch. Keep outdoor sound levels consistent and predictable, especially during dawn and dusk feeding windows. Mistake 9. Moving your feeder repeatedly or feeding in inconsistent locations. Every time the feeder moves, even a few feet, the deer must remap the feeding site, reevaluate the approach path, and reassess the threat environment from the new location. This is not trivial work. For a prey animal, it represents real energy expenditure and real risk exposure. Choose a feeder location deliberately and maintain it. If a move is necessary, relocate in small increments over multiple weeks rather than all at once. Mistake 10. Excessive human scent near the feed site from regular foot traffic. Walking directly through feeding areas to check or refill feeders deposits scent trails that overlay and eventually overwhelm the deer's scent baseline for the space. Walk around the perimeter of feeding areas whenever possible. When handling feeders, use unscented gloves to minimize hand scent transfer. Consider building a fill pathway that approaches the feeder from a different angle than the deer's approach corridor. If you've made some of these mistakes and your deer have disappeared, here's the structured recovery protocol that works. First, identify and completely remove the specific trigger. If it was a dog visit, wait for the scent to fully clear at least 5 to 7 days after the dog last had access to the area. If it was a layout change, return the yard to its previous configuration if possible. If it was a noise event, simply wait for the disruption to pass and the acoustic environment to normalize. Second, deep clean the feeder and the immediate feeding area using unscented biodegradable soap. Rinse thoroughly and allow the feeder to air dry in an outdoor, natural scent environment before redeploying. This step removes accumulated human and contamination scents that may be compounding the avoidance signal even after the original trigger is gone. Third, restock with fresh, high-quality attractant in the same location as before. Consistency of location is critical during recovery. You are trying to reactivate the deer's existing positive memory of the site, not create a new one. Fresh deer pellets with molasses, apple-scented deer blocks, or fresh-cut branches from fruit trees work significantly better as recovery attractants than plain corn because they carry strong positive scent signals that deer can detect from a distance. Fourth, enforce a strict low human activity protocol near the feeding area for a full 2 weeks. No approaching the feeder in person during daylight. No standing near the area. Minimize foot traffic through the zone to feeder refill access only. Handled during low deer activity hours in the middle of the day, wearing gloves to reduce hand scent. By week 3, if the original avoidance trigger has been fully removed and the environment is clean, quiet, and consistent, deer that still have your yard on their mental map will begin to reinvestigate. Patience here is not optional, it's the entire strategy. Now you know what's been working against you. The invisible signals, the scent mistakes, the behavioral errors that deer register before you know you've made them. Every single one of these mistakes is fixable. None of them require expensive equipment or dramatic changes to your lifestyle. They just require awareness, which you now have. Fix even 3 or 4 of these, and you'll notice a meaningful change in deer behavior within weeks, more frequent visits, longer feeding sessions, and deer that begin to show the relaxed body language of animals in a genuinely trusted space. Subscribe. The next video shows you exactly what to put out to bring deer in from over a 1/4 mile away, and the answer is probably not what you expect.